Welcome to Planning Face Syndicate. This is our Star Wars X-Wing podcast. Tonight, we have episode 157. We got a few things to cover before Worlds, and then hoping to be able to wrap up this episode with a spoiler from the XWA. Joining me tonight is JJ. How are you tonight, sir?
I'm doing all right. I'm excited. The Worlds is coming up this week, and there's so much X-Wing to play for Worlds, and I'm just excited to see everybody in person again. And yeah, it's going to be a fun time.
Awesome. Yeah, so it should be a great time. Hopefully, everybody will have a lot of fun. I don't know. Are you coming by Michigan? Are you going to stop through Michigan on your way back through, or?
Unfortunately, I actually was not able to find a flight that would land me over by your area. Everything had me going through St. Louis or, oddly enough, Atlanta. So yeah, it's weird.
Fair enough. Yeah, so hopefully Worlds is fun this year. I was not able to afford it. My daughter going on her trip, and then my dog's surgery, everything just kind of drained all of my resources quite a bit. So $2,000 for the dog surgery and like all the medications and all of that. That was fun. So yeah, just didn't have the funds this year, unfortunately, to make it to the Worlds, which sucks because I'd like to see everybody. So JJ will be there representing us for Planning Face Syndicate. Hopefully, you guys will all have a good time. Remember me, send cool things back with JJ to give to me, all that fun stuff. Yeah, and I guess if anybody in this next week wants to buy the majority of an X-Wing collection to fund my trip, they're welcome to do so. But outside of that, I won't be able to make it, unfortunately, and it is sad, but I know everybody will be having a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to Nickel City. Starting up here, and actually I'm looking forward more or less to all of the new XWA points and playing that type of stuff versus having to play old FFG or AMG points. So
yeah, and I definitely want to give a big shout out to everyone who's donated to my GoFundMe to help finance the trip out to Worlds. Honestly, when I look back at everybody that's donated, I'm honestly touched and humbled that you guys have taken the time to look at the page and send a donation to allow me to make it out to Worlds this year. It means the most to me from the bottom of my heart. Thank you to everyone who's done it so far. Every single donation has mattered, and I wouldn't be able to go to Worlds without you guys. So thank you so much, and I hope to see so many of you out there at Worlds and have a great time over there.
So before we go any further, why don't we actually get into some Worlds prep? We had some requests, people talking about, hey, what do we do? What can we do for, getting ready for Worlds? And I know it's a little late, and we're not really going to talk lists. We were originally going to talk some lists, but I just don't, if you haven't decided on your list at this point, you probably should just play Scum. That's what I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. So some of the things that we want to cover is just talking about just basic rudimentary things for your list. This can be applied to a lot of different types of lists. Things like range control, how to set up your large base. We know that ships that have mobile turret arcs are big. You look at the YT 2400, you look at the Millennium Falcon, you take a look at the Decimator. Those are ships that still are meta viable and are definitely something that you will see played across the table at Worlds for sure. And we'll go ahead and start there. So the very first photo here that I set up here, this one is an example using a gauntlet. Obviously, it's not something that's something that could apply to the other ships that I just mentioned, but this is kind of a setup for your large base ship. This is assuming that you end up having a rock set up exactly in the corner at range 2 of each side. With this particular setup here, this allows you the flexibility to take a look to see what your opponent is going to set up across from you. If after everything has been placed, if your opponent stacks heavy against where your large base ship is and you don't feel confident that your ship can survive or have a viable escape route, you have two different options. The 3 bank for that particular large base gives you either a way to go straight into the action, or if you need to move away and get away from those ships, you can easily do a way out. And so if you look at the three bank to the left, it easily clears that rock there. It provides that extra cover in the event that your enemy ships manage to make it that far in advance really fast, and it opens up your dial for a hard turn for the next turn, or you can boost in further towards the center of the board if you're running away from the other ships. It just offers a lot of options. If your opponent decides to go away and not stack in, that 3 bank easily clears that rock on the opposite side. You're in a much more offensive position at that point to help come in towards the center of the map and help out the rest of your list in that way. And if you have a ship that can boost, it extends that range even further, being able to set yourself up for a big round where that ship can come in and really contribute to the offense for your particular list, or go after particular objective points on the board and allow you to be present and force your opponent to react to that there. So that's... Yeah.
When you place it there too, you can also place it a little bit off the map as well, right? Like if you want to get a little bit more flexibility, you can move it back a little bit, as long as you just make sure you don't do a stop up that turn.
Yeah, so when you're placing your ship, it does have to be within the edges of the map. At the front edge per se of the ship can extend past that range one like area where you're supposed to play your ships, but as long as one part of your ship base is touching the rear. So as long as you're able to do that, you can actually set it up at a perfect 45-degree angle, and that gives you that flexibility to do that 3 bank in either direction there. So that's kind of an ideal setup if you're not sure whether or not you want to go in aggressively or not.
Yep. And with that 3 bank there, does that allow you to still maintain being put on the board, correct? Like you're not going to hit that rock.
Yeah. That rock is placed exactly at that that coffin corner, essentially, with the 2 range 2 on the sides and from your own edge. So no matter what type of obstacle you put there, your large base will easily go around it with that 3 bank if you're deploying at that perfect 45-degree angle. So yes.
Awesome.
All right. So the next one that we have here is just talking about the rule of 11, right? So this is the amount of space in order for your ships to engage, right? So if you're facing off against an opponent that has the ability to do a 5 straight, even with a boost action, usually on that first turn, they're able to reach out to your ships here. The first example here, we have an A-wing facing off against a TIE fighter. TIE fighter deployed right at the edge. Where they did a 2 straight, which is the slowest maneuver that a TIE fighter can do. And that A-wing was able to do a 5 straight and a straight boost. And with that, you can see that on turn 1, they easily reach each other at range 3. Now, this matters a lot because on that first turn, if that ship that managed to boost into range manages to somehow acquire a lock, let's say an Afterburner's Vader, for instance, that is able to move at I6, has perfect knowledge where you are, then you're most likely going to end up taking a shot there. So that's something to be aware of there. It's very similarly below on a medium base that does a 1 straight with that very same maneuver. I even tested it with a straight as well, a 5 straight with a 1 straight boost. The ship is able to tag that medium base there, and very similarly with a large base there. So when you're setting up against your opponent, that is something to really keep in mind if your opponent wants to play aggressive. Typically, if they have any type of ordnance that allows them to shoot something at range, to deny your range bonus and still keep theirs. If you don't have any weapons that can deny the range bonus, your opponent most likely will try to take advantage of that, especially if it's a one-on-one there, right? So you want to keep that in mind as your range control. You want to be able to keep your ships far enough away if you don't have a way to contest that, or at least prepare your ships for that particular assault, because it could happen for that. Similarly, we have on the next slide here, you're in a situation where your ship wants to run away, right? Let's say that you force the bump on your enemy. They're on a lower initiative from you, and now you're trying to get away as you have either like 1 health left, or you have a crit that can lower your agility, and you're trying to get out there. From this particular example with the A-wing run away from the TIE Brute, as you can see, the 5 straight basically extends almost the full length of the range ruler for the range 3. However, they're able to boost. They can easily get out of that arc. So that's something to keep in mind as an opponent. If your opponent is looking to run away from you just to preserve their ship, that's something to keep in mind in terms of trying to prepare another ship to intercept them from the side, because you can see the full length of how fast a ship can move in order to try to escape that arc there. So if you have a very maneuverable ship and you know that you can't catch them, it might be worth letting them peel off and you go after another target of opportunity rather than trying to chase down this very agile ship that can easily get out of your range if you're not able to fully extend past them. So that's something to keep in mind as well.
Yeah. And I think one of the big things here too, right, is, like you have an A-wing ironically on there. And the big thing is ensuring that you stay at, you make sure you stay at the fastest maneuver, because if they're going to come in hot, you at least want that range 3 bonus die. So even if you have the crit that reduces your agility, at least you get your normal agility at range 3. And I think one of the big things, too, is if you pay attention, you can that A-wing there could also boost and then barrel roll, right? You won't have any mods, but you got to think about those things. Is that for that TIE Brute, what is a force trait for them, right? Is it red? Is it blue? Is it, what is it going to be? And the big thing is going to be is that A-wing has the ability to really kind of get out of there. And you're going to notice aces will do a lot of that. So if you're a lower agility or a lower initiative ship and you're an ace, you could do your extreme maneuver and then, go for the glory and just hope you don't get an arc. And I will tell you, the first rule of X-Wing when it comes to playing in the World Championship, they have, you must call a judge if you're going to be if you think it's just barely in, call a judge, let them make the decision. That way there's no hard feelings for anybody. It's just so much easier.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. There's going to be a lot of moments in Worlds where it's going to be a close, a tight call for something. The best thing before you start touching anything, before you start, trying to manipulate ships and stuff like that, if it's something that's too close to call, always call a judge, because the last thing you want is for you to, by mistake, knock something over or nudge something, and then there's a lot of feels bad at that point, especially if it ends up going against your way, right? Always best to just get a judge involved in those type of calls when it's too close to call. So yeah. So the last thing we want to talk about is getting the right amount of practice, right, and how to practice effectively. So there are a lot of different philosophies for a lot of players that try to get as many reps as possible, and I kind of want to touch base on a few of them there. The one that I see the biggest is people that play a certain amount of turns and then resetting after that amount of turns if they feel like the game has been already decided. The pros of that type of practice there is that it definitely helps you set up your start, right? You're practicing how to deploy your ships. You're practicing your obstacle placements so that we can set up direct pathways for your ships. The biggest one, for instance, would be the Mandalorian in the ST-70, where he needs to have a direct path to go straight and turn around. Otherwise, he may not have the way to clear his stress from his dial. So having that setup pathway is very big for those type of lists where you have ships that are not very maneuverable or don't have the best dial to clear their stresses, right? While that's really good in the beginning when you're trying to set up that thing, the biggest drawback to that is that it doesn't always provide you the best data to properly test your list, right? Because if you're stopping after 2 or 3 turns and kind of deciding the game after that, it's not giving you enough data to see what happens when parts of your list starts coming apart. I'm sure most X-Wing players know that, especially during certain engagements, there are times where your dice fail you roll a blank out, and then all of a sudden your ace that you're depending on just is dead, and now you're left without that key piece of your list. Does your list still work after that? If you're doing this particular style of prep, it's not going to give you the best amount of data or information for it. So if you're looking to really test your list, you can definitely go to the next way, right? Playing full games. Playing full games gives you a lot of data on your list on what works, what upgrades will make particular ships work better, what makes them work less, and trying to really help you develop your play style with that particular list. It can make the difference between you choosing starter pack Vader versus Battle of the Admin Vader, or even custom Vader, just depending on what you want for your particular list. And also, it also helps you identify if a ship performs weak overall, depending on the scenario. And if you decide that you may need to readjust your points or reallocate your points into a different pilot or even a different chassis, if it works better for your play style. Now, the biggest drawback to that is playing full games takes a lot of time, right? A lot of times you're putting in hour to sometimes an hour and a half of playing these full games. And for some people, you know, they have the time, they can do that. Others just want to try to get through it a lot more quicker, just to get more experience. So going that route may not be the best, and they may try to choose like situational games, right? And that's the last point for this one here, doing scenario specific style of plays, right? This is games where you're practicing against a specific archetype of list, or you're practicing a specific scenario in order for you to stress test your list for that particular environment. Those are really nice because you can really cater your list to deal with that particular type of scenario, right? And you can really see if your list can excel at that particular scenario. Now, the biggest drawback to that is that it can cause tunnel vision, right? Because you're so focused on acing that particular scenario or playing against that particular list that when you're presented with another list that you haven't practiced for, suddenly you don't know how to do it. You start doing misplays, or you don't quite understand what your opponent is trying to do with their list, and it leaves you unprepared. It's nice for certain things, but kind of fluctuating between the three styles of practice will help you give you an overall experience and help you cater to what you want to do, what you want to accomplish with your list.
And I think one of the things at this point too is the longer reps is understanding, you know, can you come back if you know, screw up the game so too badly, right? Like, you don't want to screw it up badly, but can you come back? And I think that's one of the bigger, you know, hesitancies a lot of people have, is they go, well, if I play this out, you know, I'm wasting all this time because I don't think I can come back. And so, like, I would always say, well, what is your win conditions based on this and that? So, like, did you lose a ship round one? Right? Did you lose like 5 points round one? Yeah, you're probably not going to come back from that unless you did massive damage to them. But if you traded for nothing, you're probably not coming back. You know, I would argue if you're losing based on scenarios, unless they have something that's like super crazy, I wouldn't stop playing. What I found is that scenarios are very swingy. And when we used to do dogfighting in 2.0, it was a lot easier to kind of determine whether you could come back or not, right? This way, what it does is it says, okay, hold on. Here we go. You know, you could, if they hit 5 objectives 3 turns in a row, fine. All right, you can concede. You know, like, at that point, you're not winning. But, you know, if they hit like 3 objectives the first time and then you start contesting them, or you have a way of getting 2 or 3 objectives that you could just, those things swing back and forth. So that's like one of the largest like things when you're practicing is, hold on, don't just give up because of scenario points or ship points. Play it out at least, like, I would say at least to the 4th or 5th round, at minimum, right? You know, and again, you know, like, it's great to practice openings. That's a fun thing. I know, you know, a lot of people like to do that. When I usually get there to Worlds, or if I get there a day early, I'll practice openings for like a good half hour to an hour, just so that I can like test setting up how I want to set up, and actually making my first maneuver based on different rock placements. Like, that's a thing I found very valuable, doing the day before. And then when I get there to a tournament, like, I don't feel stressed or pressured anymore, as stressed or pressured. So
yeah, the other thing too is, like, you know, don't be afraid when you're in these tournaments, if you're not familiar with a particular chassis or how they move, before the dials are set, ask your opponent, hey, can I take a look at the dial? I want to see what kind of blues it has, or even ask your opponent what blues that particular ship has, so that we know if they plan to unstress, or that ship can potentially go. That's something that you can always ask your opponent before they set the dials, and that way you can at least have that little bit of information. Don't be afraid to ask that there. If you can familiarize yourself with as many ships as possible, that definitely will give you the greatest benefit. But of course, that also takes time. But yeah, don't be afraid to ask your opponent for that. It's a quick, hey, let me just mess up the dial. Just make sure you can see what I've set, and you can look at the dial, and then your opponent can set the dial afterwards, and go there, and that at least gives you a little bit of information. The other part of it too is going back to range control. When you're checking for range, when you can when you're looking to see if you're in arc or without arc, that also gives you information on how fast you need to go in order to reach your opponent for the following turn, and you can make decisions based off of that as well. So every little bit of information that you can get will make you a better player, because it'll provide you more information that you can make decisions out of. So practice that. Always take the opportunity to learn as much as you can about where the board state is, and you're going to come out on top.
All right, fair enough. Anything else before we move on to spoilers?
No, I just hope that you all have fun. Above all, have a great time at Adepticon. That's the biggest XWA event that we'll have. This will be the final AMG Worlds that we're going to have, and I'm confident that we're going to have another Worlds next year with the XWA. But yeah, just have a blast out there.
Awesome. So let's switch into we have one reveal for standard loadout cards that I actually was pretty excited about. More so than I had been for any of the other ones. Except for I did like Bo-Katan quite a bit, but I really like this one. So we now got Zuckuss as a standard loadout card in the G1A Starfighter. So it's got, obviously, it's the same stats. It's got the 3 attack dice, 1 agility, 5 hull, and 5 shields. Its action bar is a focus, target lock, or you can do a barrel roll calculate, or a jam calculate. That's just pretty cool. Those are both red actions, but that's still pretty cool. You could do the jam and still get a calculate token. Zuckuss's ability says, while you perform a primary attack, you may roll 1 additional attack die. If you do, the defender rolls 1 additional defense die. Well, so that's, again, great, not great. I think that's fine, especially if you're rolling against like larger ships. I think that's going to be really cool. Because of the fact that, you roll up and somebody's got, I don't know, a Falcon there. They get 1 agility. They get 2 agility now, but you're shooting 4 into them. I like the odds of that a little bit better. They have a new enduring limitations at the end of the activation phase. If you have 3 or more stress tokens, you must remove 1 stress token to suffer 1 damage. A new talent, Persistent Tracker. I don't think we've seen this on any of the other cards. This is 3 charges with 1 reoccurring. During the system phase, you can spend all 3 of your charges. And then during the activation phase, if this upgrade has 0 active charges, you may perform actions and execute red maneuvers even while stressed. So it's kind of like a reoccurring every 3 turns contraband. I like it. I think that's a cool design. Especially for this vehicle that likes to get stressed all the time.
Yeah.
You also get a tractor beam. We know what tractor beam does. You get 4 LOM crew, which is at the start of the end phase. You may spend 1 calculate token and choose an enemy ship at range 0 to 1. If you do, transfer 1 of your stress tokens to that ship. And then you also get Mist Hunter title. After you perform a cannon attack, you may gain a strain token to perform a bonus primary attack against the same target. That's new too, correct? That's not the original title. I like that title a lot. That's a really cool feature. It obviously it kind of goes off of the what is it? Is it the brutes that have the calculator? Well, I can't remember if it's the brutes.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah,
I don't remember. Or no, it goes more. Maybe it's not the brutes. It's the Fang fighters, the ones in Rebel, whatever her name is, that can do that. But I really like the fact that she, you have the ability, right, to shoot the tractor beam. Hopefully it lands, then gives you the ability to redo another shot on top of it. And then you don't even care, because now you can add your additional die, and they get to add their green die back. So if they're a 1 agility ship, you tractor them, right? and then all of a sudden you can now they're losing their die. You can now just go, oh, hey, I'll let you have it back, but I'm going to get an extra red die. I don't know. I like it. I think that's really good. Personally, I think that's extremely good. I have a bad feeling that this ship's going to come in at 6 points. I think at 5 points, this ship is probably playable. I probably would play this ship. I don't remember the dial on these things, so maybe the dial is trash.
Yeah, the dial is not the best. It does have a red stop and it does have a turnaround maneuver, a K turn. But as far as straight maneuvers, it has the one banks and the one straight all the way up to the two straight. And then it does have a white two hard turn forward as well as a three bank. So it's not the best dial on there, but it's enough for the ship to get around and at least have some decent shots as a medium base on there. I got to say the Miss Hunter title definitely was a big upgrade for this one. Just being able to double tap there, and yeah, you bring up a great point, right? If you do that tractor token, if you do the tractor shots and get them tractored, you can then trigger Zuckuss's ability on the second shot and basically negate it. Also works really well against like ships that have zero agility, and they end up having like a strain, or you manage to tractor them as well. It only takes 3 tokens to do it, and if you shoot into a zero agility ship and you tractor them, then you roll your 5 die shot at range 1. They still roll 0. So that's really strong for this particular chassis. The best part of it too is the upgraded health. Originally had 8 health, if I'm not mistaken, and now it's upgraded to 10. So it's on par with a fire spray essentially, but only 1 agility. So it's a nice upgrade to this chassis. It makes it a lot more durable, and I do love the change for the linked actions. It does have a focus action and it has a linked calculate action onto this bar as well, just giving you that flexibility of what you want to do with it. So yeah, the ship is definitely going to see some play there. What do you think? Is this too strong at 4 points, or would you still play it at 5?
I would test this at 5. Yes, I think the biggest downside, like if you give this to me at 4, I will play this. Like I think at 4 points, this is an easy include. I think the big thing is you're trading consistency with this ship, right? You have to either coordinate the ship or do something for the ship, because you're not going to get multiple mods all the time. And I think that's the big thing, is like you have to be strategic, because you have to be able to take that range 3 shot, right? Get your target lock, hope you don't die. You shouldn't die logically that after 1 engagement, and then that next engagement you can murder a couple of different thing, or murder one thing, based on that. So I think at 6 points this is unplayable. At 5 points it's worth a shot, especially if you could put some sort of coordinator in there. I will say, like, I would be very careful on the stress piece of it. Like, that's going to be the hardest thing to deal with, I think, for the ship, is that it's not like the lay, like you're kind of getting the Leia effect, but like with your enduring limitations, you're not removing all stress, you're only removing 1, right? So like,
Yeah.
It's essentially like what you need to do with it is when you activate it to gain all your stress, you need to be able to be in arc of somebody at range 1 so you can dump your stress, and be able to have mods. So I think that the downside, I don't think this is playable at 6 points in any way, shape, or form. At 5 points, I would put this on the table. At 4 points, this is definitely worth it, and I don't think it's an auto. I will forewarn you, I still don't think it's an auto include, because of the pure fact that I don't think even at 4 points you could just say, hey, this thing is broken, because they balanced it well enough with the stress modification that you're not able to. Basically you're gonna. It's kind of like Cornhorn, right? Like you could get that extra, the stress to be able to shoot your extra, attack.
Disarm, yeah.
I
know what you're saying, yeah.
And like it, but it prevents you the next turn from doing much. And that's what this ship's going to do, is you're going to be able to go in there and hit really hard for 1 churn. And if somebody could coordinate you or do something, you're going to be able to have the dual mods, which will be really nice. But like, I mean, in fairness, I don't want to shoot 2 shots with just a calculate token that I really need at the end to get rid of one of my stress tokens. So I don't know. I guess they didn't say so essentially you would have your 3 stress tokens. You would get rid of one of them in the activation phase, and then so you throw your persistent tracker, get rid of your stress for the damage, right? And then I don't know, you probably won't have 3 stress though. I don't know, the enduring limit. I'd have to test it, but I don't know if that's ever going to even trigger. Right.
Yeah, it ends up really mattering on times when you end up getting like a panic pilot, or let's say Cad Bane passes off a stress onto you and you're already stressed, right? And you need to stay still or do a turnaround maneuver to have time on target. That's where persistent tracker really comes into play there to be able to still be double stressed or even triple stressed in that case and still turn around, right? That's when you have that emergency button to turn around and still do that. So it is better than contraband cybernetics because you're able to use it more than once, but ideally the average amount of turns is about 7 to 8 turns right now. Assuming that you're not using this on turn number 2, you might get it off 1, maybe 2 times in a game, just depending. So,
fair enough. So, I like it. I still think it's a neat design, and I like that they looked at the G1A ship. Like, how many times have you put that on the table recently? Yeah, not very many.
Nope.
So
I've tried, and it just gets deleted every time. I don't know what's wrong with it yet.
So, but. All right. Well, I like it. Like I said, I think it's cool. Hopefully we get some more spoilers. I'm waiting for my Republic spoilers, since that's the faction I'm flying for Nickel City League this week. So, or not this week, next week, but
yeah.
And JJ's gonna give me the easy pairing. That's what he's gonna do. I'm not gonna get. Who are we even playing in 2 weeks?
I think it's the Degenerates. I had to double check.
It's a newer team.
Yeah.
That the Degenerates aren't newer.
Maybe I have to double check the schedule. I'm so focused on Worlds that I haven't really looked at who we're actually paired up against. So, but yeah, I'm sure we'll do fine for our first week.
Hopefully you can get us paired up. I would like to be paired up this week just so that I can start practicing.
Yeah, no problem.
Get us some pairings, JJ. Get us some pairings before World.
Yes, I'll have it done. Oh, Jagged Axe. That is the new team. Yeah.
I was gonna say, I'm pretty sure it's the new team. Who captains that team?
I will take a look. There's so much new faces and stuff. So, but yeah.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for joining us. Hope you all have fun at Worlds. And we'll hopefully see you the next time we have a big event. With that being said, thank you all. Have a good night, and we'll see you on the Flippity Flop.
Have a great night, everybody, and see you at Worlds.